Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. This is the 5th Global Supply Chain Meeting of Webuild, and this is a very special occasion, not just because of the circumstances, but also for the leap in quality. In the last 4 years, more than 500 suppliers have attended our annual meeting, and now it's over 1,500 suppliers who are logged on to this room, and I'm here together with Claudio Notarantonio. We are hosted by the Webuild facilities. This year's theme is about sustainability. What is sustainability? It looks like a new term, but it actually dates back to 1987 when the first legislation in Brundtland decided to give a new definition of sustainable development. The basic definition was a development that could address the needs of present generations without then sacrificing the needs of future generations. Over the last 30 years, this concept has grown broader and is part and parcel of global economies and business models. Webuild does belong to this group. This is actually the pivotal theme of our meeting, because we need to understand that at stake is not just the environment or the fulfillment of basic needs. Major works means improving then the life not just of the planetary population, but also the ability to improve the whole supply chain. Without sustainability, not only do we not create a better world, but we cannot work. It's more difficult to ask for money off a bank or participate in tenders, because now also then the end users and customers are asking for sustainable business models following then recent events. But now let me come to the heart of the matter. Claudio, last year you talked about diversity. This year it's about sustainability. Well, last year we talked about diversity and disruption because we wanted to point to a basic direction that could help us support competitive models, especially in our global rook, which is present in all 5 continents, in many countries and different industries. You know that building a dam is totally different from building a metro or a football stadium. So a disruptive frame of mind is important in order to be able to fulfill unconceivable goals. And that's a challenge, but we decided to go one step further. Sustainability, as you said, in terms of a sustainable business model that enables us to create value for us, our stakeholders, the whole of the community, and also in terms of environmental protection and energy consumption. Smaller energy consumptions, and that's the journey we'd like to embark upon together with our suppliers. So growth, sustainability, investment, and creativity, as well as innovation. Indeed, as you saw in the initial video, 5 pillars. So we do have sustainability principles such as the environment and the governance, but we go one step further. Just as we said last year, we invest in people too. We decided to become disruptive in hiring managers with different skills from other backgrounds, and then we're also investing a lot in innovation. That's what P of Progress stands for. We even organize an innovation day on a monthly basis where we meet with our suppliers to discuss innovation themes and understand how we can conduct innovative projects to become more efficient. Well, a central role is always played by the relationship between people and businesses. I mean, our organization consists of people. All the rest is just around, but it's about the people. I come from Naples, and if I may, today I'd like to talk about, a champion and a top performer. In our opinion, a top performer is someone who, in addition to having technical skills, also has a vision and can get it across. What we want to get our supply chain across is our vision of a sustainable business model. Thank you for indirectly mentioning Maradona, because actually this meeting will last the same as a game of football, 90 minutes. This is not about showcasing, it's about exchanging experience. Even though we've got the first line of management here today, but we'll also be celebrating and rewarding suppliers who contribute to a greatness. That's why I would like to invite Pietro Salini, the CEO of Webuild, to talk to us. So what's the current status, and how come you've decided to coin a totally different strategy? Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us, and so many of you too. This is a time when this distance is indeed separating us, but luckily enough, thanks to new communication technology, we can keep on going. I mean, today's meeting, which takes place on a yearly basis with the discussion of people, needs to take place over and beyond the current situation due to the pandemic. So that's why we decided to celebrate our annual meeting all the same. The theme of this year's meeting is to focus on an important driver for growth, namely the ESG pillars, which replace the so-called green economy, then called sustainability, and now they are measurable goals. This sort of goodwill that used to be expressed traditionally with the idea of a green or sustainable economy are now translated into real terms. And that means not just having wishes such as we want to do good things, then we'll take an active role in the social life of our communities, and we'll do that in an intelligent manner. But in addition to that, we need to set some goals and plans are part and parcel of our business plan. They become a sort of action model. These 5 pillars, which will be better articulated in the rest of the meeting, are the heart of the new business plan we have been drawing up. And later on, at the board meeting, we'll be discussing its guidelines, and we'll be defining the future targets and goals of this business plan with respect to the sustainability criteria, which were just translated into ESG criteria. We need to translate these criteria, but then also focus on our being, because with a practical approach, words cannot be a pretext to be cloudy without actually having any, just having, smoke and mirror, a lot of smoke but little substance, because often we wonder what sticks behind it. Well, employment, production, output, well-being, wealth even. And we need to consider all of these different aspects that are directly related to our business life. And that's why a responsible role must be taken on by a business. Altogether, we're facing a mission. Not just to then acquire a decent margin at the end of the day, but we also need to pave the way to a better future for future generations, to employ people and do so in a sustainable manner by defining a number of parameters, we'll be defining together, in which we want to share with our partners, with our suppliers and supply chain stakeholders. Being a large group, and since we acquired Astaldi, we have 70,000 people, 40 countries in the world, and 40 billion things to do. orders and projects also means there are greater opportunities for the whole of the supply chain, which means because over the next 3 years we'll be able to buy goods and services from you for about 15 billion euros, which then boils to a substantial market. And together with Astaldi, we'll also be focusing even more in Italy, much more than so far. Whilst now, as a result of a number of major projects, and thanks to Astaldi, we'll be focusing once again on Italy too. We did not disregard Italy just because we wanted to be global. We are indeed global, but there were as many opportunities in Italy as we would have wanted for the magnitude of our group. But then, we now have these national champions, and that's something we managed to convince the Italian government to do. But such a large Italian multinational group may also address the need for infrastructure in Italy, because infrastructure is still poor, and the lack of it prevents Italy from being competitive enough. But being so large, we can invest in research, innovation, and together with you, we can make that leap forward, which will allow us to be more competitive, to address our customers' needs and requests, and to tout our Italian identity around, whereby infrastructure works are not just useful, but also good-looking. We did so in Genoa with our then Archistars, because that bridge in Genoa was built in record time. So in addition to that, it's also a beautiful work. And the message here is that when we are allowed to work, when business people and companies are helped in doing their work, we have shown that we can implement and build public works in record times at reasonable costs, just doing things as our ancestors used to do. The way that things were done, where there was a relationship of trust, where people were judged based on what they did as opposed to what they belonged to. And the same applies to our relationship with all of you, because we want to watch you doing your work on a daily basis and trying to lend you a helping hand in our mutual interest. We have turned into a global company, which is present in so many countries, because in just over 20 years, we used to be a family-owned business, 140 million euros, billion. And this year we should go up to 80 by 2023, which means a significant growth. That's something you cannot do on your own. You can only do it if you join forces together with your partners, which then belong to the construction supply chain, which consists of thousands of people, thousands of businesses working with us. Our aim is to share with you this model, which will allow each and every one of us and of you to do your work properly. All over the world, we want to facilitate exports, and by the same token, we also want to facilitate the creation of jobs, because Italy, but not just Italy, badly needs more employment, because all countries in the world are looking for new employment solutions. So we want to be a solution provider. Solutions to existing problems ranging from transportation, energy distribution, new technology, water, And to do that in order to create employment, jobs. We want to help our young people to have a future and to nurture hope. You know, the same dream as I nurtured when I was younger. And I think the same applies to you, doesn't it? That's what we want to do. In addition to our core business, I mean, in the last 114 years, we've done it, ranging from Panama Canal to the major dams in the world, high-speed railways, motorways, highways, minor roads, metros all over the world. I mean, nowadays, you go anywhere and it's difficult not to find something we built, even in the remotest places in the world. But in addition to our core business, we are planning a sort of Webuild X, namely, technology innovation should become our new core business in parallel to the other one, namely turnkey or comprehensive solution to be provided to operators, concessionaires, existing networks, people who are seeing the infrastructure issue as a problem because they do not feel that's their specialty, but they need to keep up with technology innovation and do what they're good at doing, namely managing networks, operating networks. We think that is going to broaden our offering. Just think of all those innovations related to having self-driving or driverless cars, which are becoming more and more common, or even the need to lay down fiber, or to have a real-time monitoring for infrastructure, for instance, if there is a leakage in a water pipeline. So the need is there to become more efficient, and to do so in such a way as to engage as much as possible with local operators. So we want to act as a sort of catalyst, which will translate needs into something practical and translate it into jobs. And I think that will somehow then fulfill the legacy I received from my grandfather, who said an entrepreneur should also create opportunities for others. If you do that, everything will be well. So not only building infrastructure which is useful, but also to see different phrases from what I saw in Catena Nuova when I went there to inaugurate the railway in that sunny plain, and I saw these young kids sitting on a wall looking blank. So I want to work hard every day to prevent these young kids from having blank stare. Another major theme about innovation. I mean, innovation per se is an empty word, isn't it? Because innovation means working on what needs to be done to then create new solutions. That's what innovation means. I mean, how can we then develop a new governance model? 60 countries, over 200 construction sites. How can we possibly do that with the same organizational model? That's impossible. So we were heavily impacted by COVID, and not just us, and that drove us to seek new solutions, not just for the present, but also for the future, because we won't always be working in the same manner. For instance, today one of the ideas is to become a sort of innovation incubator. We'd like to invest together with you in some healthy projects, create a team that can receive any insights and ideas from you and become your partners and start investing in these projects together with you. That's also important too, because only people experiencing our problems on a daily basis will immediately understand how badly needed these insights are, because they will heavily affect the way we do things, possibly better going forward. That's something that lies close to my heart, because innovation doesn't need to be just an empty word such as buying a new supercomputer, but it means thinking all together, do brainstorming to then address daily issues with brand new solutions, because I want to become a provider of future for our customers, because we are those who need to give our customers integrated and often new solutions to existing problems. And that's something we'd like to do with all the organizations such as ANAS, RFI, Autostrade, and major network operators, so utility operators we work with. All these people do need solutions, and that's what we want to provide them. And then let me talk about the young generation. It's always very interesting because they are our future, but little is done about them. So I'd like to allocate some economic space in our investment budget for the future. So I'd like to allocate some room for young startups, a sort of provision, so as to provide them with new opportunities and even financial means. Obviously, a young startup is more risky than well-established companies. That's quite clear, isn't it? So, as a rule, people will say, why do you want to risk your money? Well, I would, because we do get something back. We get a different viewpoint, something belonging to the future. And that's what I'd like to bet on. So that's why I'd like to carve this specific space for young people to take up this challenge together, and then in exchange we'll be able to see and experience the future in a different manner. Thank you. That's a very clear message, especially in the current emergency, where then the future of economy seems to be dependent on subsidies. But then the key message does go through industrial policy and projects. It shouldn't just be dependent on solidarity or charity even. But now we have Claudio Lautizzi, who's the General Manager of Operations of Webuild. And since he could not make it here today with us, he sent a recorded video. Thank you.
Buonasera a tutti, benvenuti alla Convention annuale dei fornitori. È un piacere essere qui e parlare e trattare quest'anno del tema della sostenibilità. Sostenibilità equivale a maggiore produttività. Noi garantiamo ambienti di lavoro in cui salute e sicurezza dei nostri lavoratori sono sempre al primo posto. Questo è inderogabile. Assicuriamo standard lavorativi elevati, il che si traduce in meno infortuni sul lavoro, meno assenteismo, forte spirito di squadra e maggiore capacità di rispettare tempi e qualità, che sono gli elementi essenziali del nostro lavoro. Altro termine fondamentale è l'efficienza. Grandi opere significa grandi quantità di materiali e risorse naturali da movimentare, produrre e trattare. Immaginate calcestruzzi, movimenti di terra, canali di Panama abbiamo spostato 50 milioni di metri cubi di materiale e a Rogun ne dobbiamo movimentare altrettanti. Quindi efficientare i processi operativi a Rogun attraverso un sistema di nastri che consente di spostare i materiali in tempi veloci, risparmiando enormi quantità di CO2, di gasolio, ha un impatto enorme sulla sostenibilità. E infine le relazioni. Come dicevo, le nostre opere migliorano i territori e la qualità della vita degli abitanti. Gli stakeholder, istituzioni, autorità, comunità non sono solo interessati alle opere che realizziamo, ma anche a come le realizziamo, ai posti di lavoro che creiamo, all'indotto dei fornitori che attiviamo, alla formazione professionale che assicuriamo ai lavoratori. Abbiamo il 70% di personale assunto localmente, con punte anche superiori al 90% in molte aree. Il 94% di approvvigionamenti locali, quasi 500.000 di ore di formazione erogate ogni anno a dipendenti e subappaltatori, effetto che moltiplica l'economia locale. Essere competitivi nel medio termine richiede pertanto la capacità di investire nelle persone, nell'innovazione, e qui chiaramente gioca un ruolo fondamentale tutta la supply chain, e nella sostenibilità. Sostenibilità ed efficienza, come abbiamo anche già detto, sono due termini contigui e bisogna sempre tenere presente, facendo riferimento a un approccio di economia circolare, riusciamo a ottenere lo stesso risultato utilizzando meno risorse. Abbiamo fatto questo Northwest Rail Link attraverso una progettazione particolarmente raffinata degli elementi del cassone, che ci hanno portato ad avere uno spessore del cemento armato della base del cassone di soli 20 cm. Questo ha consentito enormi risparmi di quantità di cemento e quindi di conseguenza di ridurre l'impronta di carbonio di tutto il progetto. Questo l'abbiamo fatto con la collaborazione chiaramente dei progettisti che sono parte della nostra supply chain. Vorrei ribadire qui davanti a tutti voi, davanti figurativamente a tutti voi, che la safety è al primo posto e dobbiamo fare in modo che anche per tutta la catena dei subappaltatori questo avvenga con gli stessi strumenti, gli stessi modi, gli stessi mezzi, senza che ci siano deroghe di sorta. Grazie a voi tutti per essere intervenuti. Ricordo a tutti che voi fornitori, subappaltatori, rappresentate la vera chiave del successo di tutti noi. Quindi avanti tutta, grande determinazione per nuovi stupendi traguardi da raggiungere insieme. Alla prossima convention l'anno prossimo.
Raccogliamolo.
Thank you very much for your kind words. And next we have Michele Longo, who's the Group Bidding and Engineering Director of Webuild. Is he connected? Indeed, I am. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Webuild, for inviting me to share my technical experiences. You probably heard Salini's word, sustainability strategic asset. In your opinion, how could you combine this bidding function, which is more numerical, to the conceptual value of sustainability? Well, first of all, let me tell you that proposing sustainable technical solutions, and here obviously for all of us, sustainability is a thread between social, economic, environmental aspects, is becoming more and more essential in tenders for major public works, because its goal is always to improve the quality of the life of people living there. More and more our prospects are not just interested in what we're going to build, but how we're going to build them. So which methods, which material, which skills will be used. So indeed, the ability to design and construct major works with innovative techniques is a major asset. We were just discussing about international tenders in Italy. Some people say that Italy is lagging behind, about the focus placed on sustainability. But what's happening abroad? What's your international experience, in trying to export this model? Thank you so much for this great question. And here I will just reiterate what our CEO said. I mean, if we take a look at our main countries of operation, such as France, Australia, Canada, Norway, US, Middle East, then usually the tender process is collaborative. Basically, we have a number of meetings, often on a weekly basis, where we need to show the client, with the help of top-notch designers, how advanced your project is, whilst fulfilling then the specifications. Then any technical choices you may want to embrace whilst not overshooting cost and times. And more decisive is also becoming the experience and skills that you have, which talents you have, because you may want to involve local strategic sub-bidders, subcontractors. In the specs, often the idea is that the local subcontractor will then be implementing the construction, which means that we have to have the best local talents during the bidding process so as to be more competitive. So basically, the collaborative approach of these clients allows us to be independent in the way we want to present our bid. And that was take place in many countries outside of Italy. But it's often not allowed in Italy, unfortunately, because you are not allowed to talk to the other bidders during the tender process. It is totally off limits. And then the client alone will have to draw up the bidding document with a scoring system whereby points are given just to lower costs. And it's absolutely forbidden to then come up with any variance. I must say that the recent experience of the Genoa Bridge did show how in Italy this approach may be successfully implemented for the benefit of the community clients, whilst then abiding by the rules. The experience with the Genoa Bridge, where then the highest technological safety standards, lots of jobs were created, local contractors and subcontractors. So this experience in Genoa was completed in record time because, the tendering process up to the signature of the contract only took 2 months, and the construction of the bridge from design to testing with the pandemic in between lasted about 15 months. A real record if you consider that we're talking about Italy. So I'd like to thank Mr. Longo and repeat his message. If the invention of the term is to act as a system is typical of Italian, then we need to overcome these rigid rules or constraints. And now we must make another leap because we're about to have a video. When I was talking about sustainability, I was talking about the summation of different elements. So that's why one of the strategic directions we built was to place emphasis on diversity, such as women working. And here we've got, after this video, we have 3 important voices. But first, let's listen to the video. As I was saying, the meaning of this video will soon be discussed at a later panel. But it's also important to have an overall view of the work that is going on. So that's why we invited Massimo Ferrari, General Manager, Corporate Finance at Webuild. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you, Alessandro. So you have embarked on a decisive challenge. We have been talking about sustainability for 30 years, but now you actually turned around. So what's the connection between that and Progetto Italia? As you heard from the other speakers, you just need to think of the Genoa Bridge, which is a clear example of that. So, for the first time, we talk about supply chain management in the field of construction, because I hope that we have many suppliers logged on today, because they will be part of our supply chain. As I was saying, sustainability is a competitive factor, a competitive driver. There is no doubt about that, even in our industry, which according to many is always lagging behind in terms of innovation and productivity. But people, clients, workers, funders are asking for it. Which is fair enough. They're asking for safety, innovation, economies of scale, and economies of scope. So it was not difficult. I must say that Progetto Italia was just a perfect fit at the right time, because it was devised before this dramatic pandemic. We ask ourselves what we could have done without Progetto Italia in the current emergency. Had we not had such a scale, a magnitude, equity, and also the overall commitment underlying Progetto Italia. You are right, it is an essential point, but this morning, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, I read an editorial discussing these themes. And they said that even though the coronavirus emergency will soon be over, the change of the economic model has by now a structural nature. And it was talking about sustainability, because the Wall Street Journal is considered to be the voice of the financial community. So what's the relationship between finance and sustainability? Well, the financial community is quite advanced as far as sustainability is concerned. You may know that there are derivatives, financial instruments that are issued on green economy. There are even some Italian companies that issued bonds and other fixed income instruments related to derivatives that are already traded on some markets. And these derivatives are about sustainability themes. 2 years ago, together with Pietro, we listened to John Kerry. Sorry about that, I keep getting phone calls. As I was saying, 2 years ago, we met John Kerry, who was criticizing the Trump presidency because the US then went out of the Paris treaties. Now he's been appointed by Biden as a special envoy for sustainability. Behind all of that, we have potential investments for hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. It's not just about well-being and the well-known targets. underlying it is also a major economy, which is something we already experience in our daily life, and which may be then embraced by most nations. So what about the key drivers for the Italian economy? Well, further momentum, and I suppose that actually the purpose of this meeting is to understand how to work as a team together with our suppliers and subcontractors. As Michele Longo said, it's not always possible, unfortunately, because of legal constraints. But in some cases, it would be nice to then work together with clients too, especially when the specs of a project have to be laid down, because we are partners, we're not competitors. So whilst often our work is seen as a sort of rivalry, harsh competition between the two parties, and it's not fair. So people try to squeeze each other to maximize profits and minimize costs, and then oftentimes builders do not have a voice, whilst it would be important to have an ongoing dialogue to conduct better, more advanced, safer, and more sustainable projects. That's why we need to look to other industries, such as maintenance. One final question. So it seems to me that I'll move along two strategic lines. On the one hand, you act as business integrators by integrating assets, but also trying to enhance the function of other businesses in the supply chain. So it's a twofold challenge, isn't it? Indeed. In addition to partnering with similar organizations to achieve economies of scale, just like Astaldi, by the same token, it's important to have strategic partnerships with other value chain stakeholders. The value chain was not explored enough, but the value chain is much longer and has many value-added links than what one might think. You asked me about the financial community earlier on. Well, the financial community is well aware of that. Banks are aware of that. They know how many businesses are behind us. I mean, if we collect money from the client and we pay our subcontractors when the deadline is reached, they in turn can pay their suppliers. So that's why the supply chain has an important role to play in the Italian economy, or for any economy which wants to minimize its debt burden as a result of the pandemic. One final question. What's your first wish when the pandemic is finally defeated? Great question. That's at least wishful thinking. I hope that sooner or later we'll defeat the pandemic. We'll have a new scenario altogether, and new challenges. We have many dreams. For instance, as I said, adjacent businesses that might be important for us, as well as then implement iconic projects such as the bridge in Genoa and elsewhere in the world, because we want to acquire a brand notoriety. Thank you very much. The important thing is to be able to be flexible and constantly adapt. And now? It seems to me that the most important part of these projects that you are implementing abroad. Can you tell us something more about the state of your projects? Let's talk numbers too, because I think it's important to articulate the supply chain achievements in 2020 and how much business we assigned. So about 3 billion euros was assigned with over 15,000 orders worldwide. And we worked with about 4,000 suppliers, and that was for 2020. As for 2021, following the acquisition of Astaldi and the strategic projects we were awarded in the US and Australia, we are then projecting that will reach a total of 15 billion, as Mr. Salini said at the beginning, for the next 3 years. Sometimes it's difficult to understand why a big business pays so much attention to suppliers, but you are a clear example embodying that. How much of your income depends on the supply chain? We have embraced the general contractor model. So between 60 and 65% of our sales is the buy perimeter. So our success is dependent on our ability to pick the best suppliers or vendors and to allow them to perform best. That's why we have for some years introduced a structured assessment system for our suppliers. Is that what you're showing? Yes. First, we introduced in 2016 where we decided to change the vendor rating process. Back then we said that we start assessing and rating our vendors along a few axes. One, commercial, economic, and financial, because our vendors need to support us throughout the project, because some contracts went on for 24, 48 months, so we need to work with 30 subcontractors. Third, compliance. We need to be consistent and compliant with specs, which we consider fundamental for the service required. Fourth, quality. And last but not least, HSE. We have been heavily investing in HSE. Safety is a must for us. As you can clearly see, whilst the others are just KPIs that are averaged based on our global suppliers, HSE is either on or off. In other words, if you're not compliant with our HSE criteria, you turn red. It's just like traffic lights, indeed. I mean, unlike the other KPIs, the HSE KPI is either pass or fail, and you only pass if you exceed the 100%. So 0 accidents, 0 casualty, 0 defects. Well, my background is automotive, so 0 is a mantra to me. That's why we heavily invested in systems and training, but we're going to do something even more. And that's something we'd like to share with our supply chain audience. Within our subcontracting frameworks, we'll be introducing rewarding and penalty systems to rate our suppliers' HSE performance. So we'll be rewarding the best performing suppliers, and we'll be penalizing the poor performers. In case I do not have an adequate training course, or if we find a worker of a subcontractor who forgot, to use the proper personal protection equipment, then we'll be penalizing them. I mean, HSE is seen as a cost, but it's also a big investment. I mean, in addition to ethics, just think how important it is for us to have one worker, as we've done for a long time, who cannot work because of an accident. But not just for you. I mean, healthcare costs go down, and that goes to the benefit of all taxpayers. That's why we have been investing, will be investing even more. We also made some investments in terms of vendor monitoring. We set targets every year. I mean, ideally, we should have then 100% of our perfect suppliers were totally in line with our expectations. And these are green. As for the yellow one, we started the joint growth program this year. So Webuild said that we have some suppliers who still have some deficiencies or gaps in certain axes who could be helped. And so that's why we launched some joint growth programs. This year we had a goal of 15% of yellow suppliers, and we only went to 12%, and we still have 5% of red suppliers. And those are the suppliers who, for one reason or another, were unable to comply with our expectations or targets. A bit like COVID, isn't it? Yes. There's something we need to work on. Our commitment for next year is to reach at least 85% of preferred suppliers, and then continue this joint growth path with our suppliers and reduce by at least 1 point red suppliers. Next year, we also have a new group of suppliers because of the S.p.A acquisition and the new markets. So we'll need to become more familiar with our supplier group. So that's why more than 1% is overly ambitious. I mean, sometimes even a nut or a screw, how can you possibly follow them all up? We have been investing in digitalization for years and years, and that was the second topic of our supplier meeting. In the third year, we talked about innovation, because that is only feasible if we've got integrated systems monitoring the main axes or focus areas, as well as our approaches all over the world. Only by standardizing on best practices, whilst bearing in mind that you need to adapt to national rules and regulations and also to individual projects. But there's more to that. We discussed innovation. We said that Webuild wants to act as an incubator, but we went even one step further. As Mr. Salini said, we want to be an active producer of value. We developed an innovative product for the first time as Webuild, something that did not yet exist in the construction industry. We called it Smart Box. It's a smart box or device allowing us to improve the way we manage our fleet, machines and equipment, and that will increase the productivity of our plants, will reduce consumption, and will allow us to have a preventative maintenance. And the strong focus will be placed on safety, or HSE. You said that last year you talked about disruption and diversity. to which extent can this be exported to other industries? As I told you, we have changed our mindset as a result of the talents and skills we acquired from people with different backgrounds. So that's we absorbed lots and lots of new lessons. And I'm sure that going forward, we might be able to go to other adjacent industries, but we are quite confident can be applied to the construction industry. One last provocative question. When we went to university, we were told that the real strength of a system is its ability to evolve. And people used to say 1 and 1 needs to be 3. Have we come that far? Well, have a look at the video.
The smart box system makes construction sites, operators, and vehicles safer. It is fully configurable both for machines and via servers. The platform reprocesses data and has a user-friendly interface to control operations, maintenance, and safety. The smart box solution lets you read all the data from vehicle systems, such as pressure, temperature, engine revolutions, hours of operation, liters of fuel consumed, etc. The application interface displays both the site map and satellite view and can also show local weather conditions. The visualization of the data is adaptable to customers' needs. The system lets you create specific KPIs with mathematical formulas using average, maximum or minimum values recorded at adjustable intervals. On the dashboard, and by using the filters, you can observe and analyze the performance of single vehicles, types of work being carried out, or get an overview of the entire construction site. The system can generate early warning messages. The alarm and pre-alarm limits are automatically generated by the system based on previous data and can be directly set by the user. When system control limits are reached, it automatically sends you notification by email. The system lets you develop 2 types of maintenance. Ordinary maintenance to organize inspections correctly, predictive maintenance based on data collected in real time to intervene before machinery breaks down and incurs damages and higher costs.
Quite a big jump in technology level. As we heard, we wanted to provide an increasingly integrated service fulfilling all types of needs to the benefit of us and all of our stakeholders. We designed this system and developed in just a few months, and dozens of means have been testing it. It will be available by 2021, and then will be adapted and customized to the local rules or regulations of different countries, and also based on the various project constraints and requirements. But as of to date, we can have a great improvement in the efficiency of our fleet. Thank you very much, Claudio. And now we can go on to the next interview with Gianluca Grondona, who's the Chief of Human Resources, Organization and System Officers of Webuild. Here you are. Good afternoon. Hi, Alessandro and Claudio. Very hot topic, lots of people attending, and lots of insights. Since you are the Chief of HR, especially at a time when I suppose you're really pressurized because of the emergency and its impact on employment. In this business, which has greatly invested in sustainability and innovation, I would expect you to have then undertaken specific, possibly advanced measures. Is it so? Thank you, Alessandro. A lot has been said about sustainability, but it's our amniotic fluid. I mean, we were born in diversity and also were nurtured and fed with diversity. We've got diverse nationalities, diverse genders, diverse generations. Mr. Salini was talking about young people. Well, we've got a highly diversified pyramid of staff with the coexistence of different generations. We've got diverse business and corporate cultures. And we just acquired Astaldi, and I'd like to welcome our Astaldi colleagues who contribute to diversity. But the same is true for the corporate culture of our stakeholders, including customers, partners, and contractors. It's not, I mean, in our industry, it's not a one-off business relationship. In many cases, you have an ongoing long-term relationship with your customers. In addition to our hallmark diversities, we also have a different way of working since the advent of COVID. Is the construction industry still working despite the many concerns for people working, because of coronavirus? Yes. Despite the pandemic, we managed to continue working on all fronts. And we did realize that this emergency has speeded up some existing phenomena, as Claudio was saying, the whole wave of innovation impacting our industry. I thought I'd show you this slide because we just presented the plan for Connected Webuild. It's a digitalization plan for the whole organization. It is based on the so-called cloud data lake. Our new amniotic fluid will be this cloud data lake, which will host our corporate knowledge, corporate data. Leveraging new technology, we'll be able to enable and empower our business processes and will act as a powerful integrator with all of its diversity. I'm conceptualizing and oversimplifying because the time is short, but we also shared with the Italian Ministry for Economic Development a manual used for innovative projects such as knowledge management, analytics, big data, data processing, our new way of virtually working together using know-how even in remote corners of the world, not just the way we're doing today, but also in highly complex projects. In order to enable business process, we have to review it all, bid to win, to build to win, the creation of the value chain from the pre-spec era down to the implementation and construction side. With the combination between projection and actual data, then workforce planning, supply journey. Claudio Notarantonio briefly talked about the innovation we're planning for the supply chain, and the control tower, which would be a great innovation for financial control. And then a major revolution or disruption, namely design to commission, because in this industry, unlike others, we have no prototype when we go from project to construction. And thanks to the digital twin, we'll be able to prototype a work. Not only that, but within these prototypes, we'll have than a collaboration between all partners before the work is actually constructed. So that's why sites will be more and more digitalized and remotely controlled. So this is going to be a dramatic change. Do you have a background in Microsoft? I was quite impressed by your IT jargon. It seems to me that the value chain or distribution has changed its face. There has been a rebalancing, seems to me, so profit comes before and after any work site, doesn't it? You're right. We did have some experience this year, which helped us greatly. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I took my IT managers to Cisco when we first started talking about smart working, and I tried introducing some pilots in our organization, but I did not find a great approval, so I decided to do it on my own. I thought it would be, you know, a trend, something that sooner or later would apply, but I never thought we would have done so extensively. But thanks to the pilot, we were then empowered to cope with this emergency. I mean, this year we managed to continue operating despite the pandemic. And just as we usually do, we had cross-function collaboration. We're talking about 700 people involved to manage the coronavirus emergency with important construction sites such as the bridge in Genoa, even Paris. So we deployed major teams. So we have a total of 70,000 people working, including subcontractors, and despite this, less than 3% of our people were COVID positive. I mean, think we've got camps where people spend 24 hours a day together. We had to dispatch doctors and anesthesiologists to Ethiopia and Tajiki, but that caused us to understand that we can work in a much different way, in a much more collaborative manner. One of the leading themes of today's meeting is a dialogue with the supply chain. It seems to me that applies both to your top management and to other people. But as for HR managers, what sort of constructive dialogue do you have with the supply chain partners? And that applies both to you and to the satellite industries. How important is it for you? Well, it's fundamental. As I was saying, we all live in the same amniotic fluid in this value chain where we contaminate each other. I mean, innovation, as I was saying, is not something that we invent. This innovation comes from people who did research, you know, sensors, big data and the like, which was probably then somehow combined by one of our suppliers in some technology, and that's something that we need to apply to our expertise and to our legacy. I think we're about to face a major change once again. I don't know if you recall Alessandro and Claudio, we discussed that a couple of days ago. I'm highly visual. I was looking at these pictures of deserted Italian piazzas, and I thought of the deafening silence of De Chirico, because De Chirico the painter founded the metaphysical models. Before him, art was either the representation or idealization of reality, whilst De Chirico, the Italian painter, brought the metaphysical dimension to art, so the shift of universal to particular. So he brought about a major shift using then paint brushes and the palette. But then he also had a sort of revival. At one point he went back to physical images, to classical paints, Renaissance. However, in his last period, He also combined physics and metaphysics, leveraging both worlds. We have a very strongly rooted physical culture. Our CEO loves saying, we've done it with our own hands. We have over 100-year-old legacy. So we're very physical. However, this might not be the Kyriakos metaphysics, but it's an abstraction thanks to the advent of virtualization and digitalization. We are sort of halfway through. I mean, the Kyriakos was definitely a modest or a humble person. He used to call himself the best painter in the world, but even major critics such as Philippe Daverio thought he was one of the 4 painters who then transformed the modern history of art. So embracing this new digital technology, we can do something similar to. We can make a connected Webuild which is more and more competitive, making our organization even more sustainable for the future. Thank you very much, Gianluca, also for then showing the Kyriakos paintings instead of Munch's with his existential anxiety. I hope that we won't be talking about metaphysics when you lay down your performance review plans. I come from Genoa, which in Italy is a bit like coming from Scotland. So that's the sort of mindset we have. And now the time has finally come for interviews about diversity. I hope our 3 panelists are already online. We have Elisabeth Alini, Corporate Social Responsibility Director, Daria Angiolini, who's the Head of Compliance Department, Arax Antonesian, Project Capacity Planning, Global Supply Chain. And so we're ready to start. I have a question for the whole panel. You are 3 people embodying this. What has changed since you joined this group? I mean, if you compare to dates when you first joined the group, in terms of expectation and reality. Good afternoon, Alessandra and Claudio. Thank you for inviting us to give testimony. I've been with the group for many, many years. I think the major change is the growing awareness. So over time, we've become more and more aware. And this doesn't just apply to the business, but also to the stakeholders about sustainability-related issues. What about the other 2 panelists? Good afternoon, Alessandro. Not just me, there are 1,500 people listening to you. I only joined Webuild a short time ago, just a few years back, so I do not have such a long-term memory. However, I'm confident that sustainable development, sustainability, are a real hope for the future. And Webuild is an infrastructure construction business. Infrastructure that is built in compliance with these principles, and such infrastructure will improve the quality of life of its users, environment in terms of mobility, trade, and energy supply. I think all of us working with Webuild, we do recognize that we do contribute to building a better world thanks to our infrastructure. Daria? Hi, Alessandro. Hi, Claudio. I've been working for Webuild for 5 years, and as for my department, compliance has been a Copernican revolution. We used to consider compliance as being compliant and respectful of a rule of law, while now compliance is seen as something referring to higher standards that were set by the company itself. That's because we understood that not only is a driver for competitiveness, but also because we want to rise up to higher, more ambitious challenges. So the compliance means raising the bar every day. So complying with values, not just with rules, you mean? Yes. Elizabeth, back to you. In your opinion, how is sustainability expressed in your relationships with your suppliers? What's the actually meeting point between the two? Well, sustainability can be expressed in multiple ways when dealing with suppliers. Climate change is speeding up. And since 70% of global trade goes through global supply chains, it is paramount to work together with your suppliers, especially based on shared values. All international institutions, regulators, and even individual countries are asking more and more companies to extend their sustainability chains to their supply chain. And at the same time, also analysts and investors started rating companies based on their ability to include their supply chain in their risk management systems, especially as far as environmental risks are concerned. Without a code of conduct for suppliers, we want to rise up to the high sustainability standards, working side by side to provide the best solutions throughout the whole life cycle of our projects. We can and must improve even further. That's why we need to be synergistic with the whole of the supply chain. We're seeing how the future challenges call for innovation and adaptation. No company can possibly master this transition on their own, and that's why the value chain will still be a crucial partner for Webuild, and will need to do so even more for environmental themes. In the near future, we'll be needing suppliers who can help us to decarbonize our direct activities and well as all our works through the supply of raw materials that do not impact the environment, because our success is dependent on the supply chain and commitment our suppliers are willing to make our side. One question for Arax. What's the ideal job? So where a worker can then meet the company expectation, but also feel fulfilled. What's your experience in Salini, in Pregilo? Well, mine is a very special story. Just a few months after I had joined what used to be called Salini in Pregilo, I had the chance of participating in an Armenian project, and I asked Mr. Notarantonio to take a sabbatical, and I was allowed to take it, so I'd like to thank him a lot and also the company. I took a sabbatical, which I spent in Armenia. I work for this NGO called Tumon, which trains people after school, so young people do between 12 and 18 years, to give them creative and IT or technology trainings. Coding, animation, video gaming, software development, 3D modeling, robotics, programming, and the like. All digital themes. The goal of that NGO was to train young people and empower them with technological and cultural means to become tomorrow's professionals and to ensure sustainable development of the national economy. As a project manager for the NGO's development in Armenia, I look after the opening of new centers, both in cities but also in the countryside. And we also created new training models such as 2 more in a box. Training centers, they're hosted by containers using recycled material innovative instruments. With these self-learning attributes of the training program, even young people in remote places had the unique opportunity of having access to attend one of the best after-school training programs. Back to Daria Angelini, talking about the code of conduct and whistleblowing. And these are 2 basic principles when talking about compliance, because it's very much about what individuals do. What are the characteristics of your code of conduct, especially for whistleblowing? If we wanted to draw a comparison, Webuild's code of conduct is a bit of the identity card that we build people, because it tells what we are, which our values are, and how we want to work. This document becomes the common denominator for all the group's people, no matter where they live and work. This is not just a document for us in-house, but also for our suppliers, because we request our suppliers and contractors to accept and undersign our code of conduct, because we work with people who resemble us in terms of ambitions and standards at the same time. It also becomes a sort of supplier's expectation, because our suppliers and subcontractors, when negotiating with Webuild, they know they'll be working with people working in a transparent manner with certain quality standards, because these are part of our code of conduct. If that were not true, so they could whistleblow it, if you want, so report it to us. And that's why we organized a whistleblowing channel. It's confidential. Also, anonymized reports are accepted. It's a very strong signal coming from the company, because it shows that the supplier's voice is important to us. So everyone, employees and third parties, can have access to the whistleblowing channel, and they can easily find it on our website and also with search engines. Is it a bit similar to the US system? Because in the US, it's a sort of individual accountability means. Is that the model you're aiming at in Italy too? Absolutely. So no one should feel threatened. Oh, no. As you were saying, Alessandro, the whistleblowing culture is still quite rare in Italy. Only in recent years has it actually emerged. When you talk about whistleblowing in Italy, people think about, betrayal, as opposed to a chance for the organization to get better. Because if you have such a complex organization such as Webuild, sometimes you might just miss some of these things. Just take a look at statistics. The biggest numbers of reports come from the US because whistleblowing is the norm. But then in some cases, even minor things are reported because you've had an argument with a colleague. But then the commitment of us as a business has always been there for the whistleblowing instruments. We have technically improved over the last few years because we wanted to make it simpler and to make it more reliable and confidential. And for 2021, we're planning an important educational campaign to then spread this whistleblowing culture even more. One question for Elizabeth. Is social responsibility part of the building phase? It is, and more so. Not only is it an essential element, but also then a diversifier. In some cases, we also rated based on our ESG criteria during the tendering process. For instance, we were awarded the Quo Vadis gold medal. In some cases, rating was decisive to get a high technical score, and that's why we were awarded a tender. Our sustainability strategy is articulated in all aspects of corporate life, including budgeting, tendering, business plan, where then sustainability is something that cuts across of them. Even financial sustainability was redesigned under this light. Thank you. You've been more than eloquent and exhaustive, and also we appreciate you being so direct and frank. Thank you. I was told there was a typo in my slide about qualification processes. As I said, we place emphasis on safety or HSE, so suppliers who are not compliant with HSE, so a red supplier, a poor performer, will not end up in a blacklist, because blacklist is a terrible expression, but rather red suppliers will require more time spent on them to help them lay down a recovery plan to allow the supplier to accomplish the minimum level. So until they have recovered their deficiencies, they will not be part of our supplier fleet. So it's not coercive, it's collaborative. Once we have identified gaps, we know they are working on them in order to recover them. I mean, bad times happen to everyone. But it's about the carrot and the stick. So we are about to talk about prices. So let me show you this symbol of prizes we award our suppliers who have excelled in service level performance and HSE sustainability in the last year. And the winners are it's a time for celebration because it's important to pay homage to people, to reward and recognize what they've done in the past. This year, we'll be then recognizing Italsem CRL for the bridge in Genoa, impianti elettromeccanici, I'd like to thank these companies which contributed to building one of the most important public works in Italy, because despite of the many adversities such as coronavirus, but often we forget to mention that we had bad weather events, long rains, and despite we managed to then comply with our targets, both in terms of costs and times. And then there is also another Italian company, Bosco Italia S.p.A, for their then noise-absorbing panels. I think we have prepared some videos.
Buon pomeriggio, io sono Enzo Ribelli, direttore tecnico commerciale di Italcemme, l'azienda che ha realizzato gli impianti per il ponte di Genova, e sono qui per ringraziare l'opportunità che ci è stata offerta, che ci è stata data per la realizzazione di questo importante lavoro, e ringraziare anche il fatto che ci avete premiato come azienda che ha raggiunto gli obiettivi che ci eravamo prefissati. La vostra squadra ci ha aiutato su tutto, sia dal lato tecnico, sia dal lato organizzativo e soprattutto nella sicurezza. Io ringrazio ancora per averci scelto e per aver premiato me e i miei collaboratori, che anche loro stessi si sentono molto orgogliosi di aver partecipato a quest'opera. Grazie ancora e buonasera a tutti.
Perfetto.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Ribelli, for your contribution. Next, we have Mr. Marenco of Bosco Italia S.p.A, its CEO. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Prego.
Buongiorno, sono Emanuele Marenco e sono il presidente e l'amministratore delegato della Bosco Italia S.p.A e sono lieto appunto di ricevere questo premio che la committenza Webuild ha voluto assegnarci nell'ambito della ricostruzione del viadotto Polcevera, del quale siamo stati coinvolti in maniera improvvisa a seguito appunto del crollo del viadotto Morandi. Il ricordo che conservo di questo lavoro è appunto il senso di impotenza iniziale dovuto alla grandezza dell'opera rispetto, diciamo, al poco tempo a disposizione, che si è ridotto dai 3 mesi inizialmente previsto ai 40 giorni che sono stati poi quelli necessari in effetti per completare l'opera e riuscire ad arrivare vincenti al termine ultimo dell'inaugurazione del 3 agosto del 2020. Grazie.
Thank you. And then the first of the foreign companies, NV Beckert SA, and we have a video for this company too. Mr. Yun Liao.
Thank you, Mr. Platiotti, and a sincere thank you to Mr. Sanini, and thank you, Webuild team. On behalf of Beckert and my colleagues, Dieter Hansel and Brad Bodman, we are grateful for this award, honoring our close cooperation with the Italian-Australian group Webuild and his Australian partner NRW, a team with a historical international experience and is continuously improving thanks to a great attention to innovation from the market and from the local partners. We are proud to collaborate with Webuild for this important project for Australia by providing Geomax 4D steel fibers instead of traditional steel mesh reinforcement. We enabled our partner Webuild to build this 8,000-meter-long metro tunnel at the highest standards and delivering sustainable performance and durability for its lifetime. A real innovation of constructing tunnels in the Australian market, this metro line will reduce road traffic and is helping to sustain our environment for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mrs. Anna Schioling of Volvo Trucks.
Thank you very much for this award. We are very honored, and we feel that this is a result of a great partnership with Webuild. which has grown over the past few years. Volvo shares Webuild's passion for sustainable transports, and we want our partnership to continue and to grow. Together, we are convinced that we can improve performance and productivity and reduce the climate impact from transports. This will open up new possibilities for streamlining operations, such as in large construction projects. So having said this, we thank you again, and on behalf of Volvo Trucks and Volvo Construction Equipment, we look forward to continuing working with Webuild to build a sustainable future with improved performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have another testimonial, but here we go back to the Webuild family, because we have Mark Scheller, who is the Lane Corporation CEO, one of the oldest United States construction companies. They've been working for 150 years, if I'm not mistaken. It works in 20 states, so almost half of the United States states. And Mark will be then giving the award to a supplier, John Deere, because they turned out to be among the best supporters for the American market. For over 20 years, they've been partnering together. Please.
Mark Schiller, CEO and President of Lane Construction. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the celebration of the Webuild's global supply chain management and how important it is to our company's success and sustainability here in the United States. Supply chain management, as implemented by Webuild and now integrated into Lane, focuses on a broad range of activities, from planning, procurement, logistics, marketing, risk management, controls, and relationship building, all with the objective of creating added value for Lane and our business partners. Our group strongly promotes innovation throughout the entire supply chain. Through processes, improvements, collaboration, communication, and performance assessments, we can determine how to best respond to the demands of our customers. The U.S. infrastructure market is robust with opportunities. With this value creation, we will improve our competitiveness, business continuity, and overall rate of success in support of our goals and sustainable growth here in the U.S. We are proud of the fact that we open doors to numerous small local businesses and national vendors as well, creating a diverse portfolio of supply chain to effectively support the needs and requirements of our business. By creating an environment within our organization that fosters this model, we will improve the economic results, not only for Lane and Webuild, but for our supply chain partners as well. So with that, I would like to congratulate John Deere, the winner of our Webuild Award. Supporting numerous projects throughout the United States, John Deere has been a committed supplier of Lane Construction for over 20 years. Recently on multiple projects in North Carolina, and now venturing out west to our I-10 project in California. John Deere has been an upstanding business partner, operating with the highest professional and ethical standards, and we're proud to be a partner with them. Special thanks to Julia Watts, the John Deere Corporate Business Division Manager, in supporting Lane's evolving needs at a national level and connecting us with local dealers and vendors to support us throughout the various cycles of our project. So thank you very much, John Deere, and congratulations.
Eccomi qua.
On behalf of the John Deere Company, I am pleased and honored to accept this special supplier recognition. I would like to extend a special thank you to Lane and Webuild as we continue to solidify, grow, and nourish our long-standing working relationship. No single project defines such a relationship, but it is truly the culmination of efforts across multiple projects and involving countless Lane, Webuild, and John Deere personnel. Our collective organizations have an eye towards the future and have partnered in our focus of sustainability. Multiple Lane and Webuild projects in the United States focus on sustainable infrastructure improvements and expansions, such as rail, high-speed rail, tunnel, and commuter transit projects. John Deere will continue to strive to deliver world-class sales, service, and support for years to come. Thank you.
I too would like to offer my sincere thanks for this award. All of us at John Deere appreciate the 20-year business relationship that we've built with the Lane Company and Webuild in the United States. And now, with John Deere's ownership of the Wirtgen Group, we look forward to growing a similar long-standing business relationship with Webuild all around the world. The John Deere and Wirtgen corporate values around sustainability, including occupational safety, product sustainability, sustainable energy, responsible water use, and increased recycling, are very well aligned with the Webuild 5P sustainability pillars. We look forward to a bright future working together, starting with the high-speed rail project in Texas. Thank you again.
We have come almost to the end of our 5th Global Supply Chain meeting. Next year, there will be even more people attending. Who knows whether it will be in person or yet again virtual. So by way of conclusion, after listening to suppliers, I think I'd like to say that this is a challenging time, especially when there are so many drives for separation. You know, people talk about team building, but we see that many attempts to split up. And I'd like to refer to Abraham Lincoln. One of his most important sentences, something that I still remember because it inspired me, is, "No one will be left behind." I think that's the very spirit of this global supply chain meeting. What about you, Claudio? Do you agree with me? Absolutely. And that's also the meaning of the prize awarded to our suppliers. 2 of them are tiny, you know, they do not have a lot of sales. However, even small suppliers can be an integral part of the Italian construction industry, adding value to the realization of major public works, such as the Genoa Bridge. So our take-home message, or actually, before doing that, I'd like to thank all people attending, all those who spoke, our communication department for their high level of professionalism. I'd like to thank all the team members because, I mean, such a virtual event does call for a lot of work. So as I was saying, the main take-home messages is that we can have a winning model based on these 5P sustainability pillars, which today we shared with supply chain. But this is only feasible if we have a single integrated system, all heading in the same direction. I mean, think of having a system of X vectors, and all vectors need to go in the same direction so as to enhance the end result of speed. And that's what can be achieved by then focusing on innovation, and that's what we've been doing. So we're more than willing to work and collaborate even more with our suppliers, then focusing on new insights from young startups and for giving them financial means. So be practical. Then improving is actually the best work you can achieve. Thank you very much. Until next year.